I'm Florence Andrews, and you're pretty cool because you're listening to the Unfreaking Believable podcast.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Unfreaking Believable podcast. My co-hosts and I are all authors who believe that life is made up of inciting incidents that make the truth stranger than fiction. We want to share with you the moments that alter the course of everyday lives in ways that are, well, unfreaking believable. We're thrilled to have you with us, and we encourage you to kick back with your favorite beverage for the next 40 or so minutes while we bring you another great episode and a great interview. I'm Jen.
I'm Jenny.
And I'm Betsy. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in for another exciting episode. And thank you for all the positive feedback we've been getting so far. You've just blown us away. It's fantastic.
How's everybody feeling? I know you two have been a little bit little congested lately. How's it going?
A little under the weather, but starting to make the turn around the corner.
Yep, I am too.
Well, I certainly hope so, because little surprise for our listeners. Well, maybe there might be some bonus material coming up soon because the three of us have a little getaway planned. And there might be some very exciting announcements sort of surrounding the idea that the three of us will be in the same state.
Oh, I hope the state is ready for us.
Can you imagine?
So excited.
Yes. My husband actually got me a shirt that says, "I am ready for shenanigans."
Shenanigans.
So
right on.
So I feel like that is definitely going to be the word of the weekend.
Yes.
When we go.
Most likely shenanigans.
Shenanigans. Yep. I like it.
Shenanigans is practically my middle name, so.
Well, I believe that. I totally believe that. And it's going to start literally almost as soon as we leave the airport because we're going to the Bigfoot Museum.
Exactly.
Yes.
Bigfoot. Good.
I know. Speaking of,
it's going to be exciting. I can't wait.
I am too. Betsy, I have to mention this to you because last night I wasn't feeling all that well, and I was, for some reason, decided I really needed to watch a documentary. Sometimes when I don't feel well, all I want to do is sit and watch some kind of documentary. I blame Leonard Nimoy for that.
Yes.
If you know, you know.
I do.
So I could not believe how many Bigfoot documentaries there are out there.
Yeah. More Bigfoot documentaries than there are Bigfoot.
Oh, no doubt. I was shocking. It was absolutely shocking. So I almost watched the one about the Florida skunk ape, right?
Yes.
Because I was like, well, that's local. That might have some local flavor. But I will tell you that I actually decided on a documentary that was about a place I'd never heard of and had all these underground caves and stuff like that. It was in South America. And I was like, wait, this sounds really super interesting. And I turned it on and it was in Spanish. Oh. Never mind the fact that the description wasn't in Spanish, nor was the, the little Netflix entry or whatever, that wasn't in Spanish. Now, in and of itself, I don't have a problem watching things with subtitles, but I don't know, it was just too much effort. Yeah. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. So I'll watch it eventually. But
anything beyond "que es esto," I'm out.
Because you don't want to have to read subtitles while you're trying to pay attention.
Especially when you don't feel good.
And there are, even in the United States, there are thousands of underground cave systems, and they are so fascinating.
I will watch it eventually, and I will give a full report whenever that comes to pass.
Yeah, but, I sat and watched the whole first season of Outlander while I didn't feel well, but I have to have the subtitles on when they start talking Gaelic because you can't understand what they're saying.
Right.
Betsy, did you see that they've cast for the prequel to that show?
I'm excited. I can't wait.
And I know that Jenny and I are going to take a moment and geek out over the fact that the Henry Cavill version of Highlander.
Oh, I'm with you on that one. I'm not a Henry Cavill fan, but I am a Highlander fan.
Yeah, I am a huge Highlander fan. And are you familiar with? Well, yeah, I'm sure you are. Cameo, right?
Yeah,
where they like people.
Yeah, Josh does cameos. I know
celebrities to give you a shout out, whatever. So my husband during the pandemic, got me a shout out from Adrian Paul, and my head about popped right out my body.
Mine would too. That's cool.
Oh, Yeah, and it was so funny because it was obvious that he recorded it when he was walking like really early in the morning because it was still dark out. And he was just like holding his phone and recording it. And it was just the nicest message. I mean, it was just, oh, if I couldn't have loved him more, I loved him more
Oh,
after
that's
that. So,
fantastic. Yeah, that
yep.
would
And
blow
my
me
husband
away.
won Husband of the Year for that. Yeah.
Yes. My husband
Yeah.
was a big fan. I think the first time we went to the movies together when we were dating, I think we saw one of the Highlander movies. I don't think it was the first one, but I think it was one of the second, maybe the second or third one. And both of us being Highlander fans and Queen fans, and I think it was just a way
Hmm.
for him to try to woo me a little bit, win my heart.
Well, it must have worked.
I think Henry
Yeah.
Cavill's going to blow it out of the park as Highlander.
Mhm.
He is such a talented actor,
Yeah.
and he's just an
Yeah.
Yeah.
all-around good guy, And he's the inspiration for one of my characters, so I am excited to see him in everything. Still trying to get Paul to go out and see Argyle with me. It's out, and I
Oh,
want to
yeah.
see it. It's in the theater. Yeah, I want to go and see that. It looks really
I've
good.
completely lost touch with what's on at the theater right now. I have no idea. That's not normal for
Me
me.
too, but I normally do too, but because it's Henry Cavill and I've been dying for this movie, it's got such a great cast, and I just can't wait to see it. But I'm more excited for There Can
Yeah.
Be Only
Well,
One.
I mean, if he's anywhere comparable to what he was in The Witcher, I'm sold. I'm sold.
Oh,
So,
oh my God.
yeah.
So good in The
So,
Witcher.
anyway,
Toss a coin to your Witcher.
that literally one of the funniest things ever. And like all my D&D nerds out there were like, "Yep, that's a bard, no question."
Yep.
Oh, that rolls so many dice for me.
All right, are we ready to get started?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yes,
All
let's do it.
right. Absolutely do have a terrific word for the day. And I chose it specifically because our guest today is English. And it is very much in temperament with most of the English friends that I know. And I'm sure she'll get a good chuckle out of it. I know she's listening in the background. But our word for today is, are you ready for this? Axismus.
Exismist.
Exismus,
Ooh.
right. So exismus it's an ironic rhetorical device where you pretend to be indifferent about something or that you don't actually care about something or you pretend to refuse something that you actually really want. Like, when somebody gives you a diamond ring and you say, "Oh, I couldn't possibly accept it." So that's exismus. So that's your word for the day. How do you think
Right
you're going to use
on.
that one, Jenny? You think you can work that in somehow?
Oh, I'm sure I can find a way to get that worked in somewhere.
All right, so you got some facts for the day, or some fun facts
I
today?
do. I have two fun facts for the day, and the first one is bite the bullet. And the origins of this one dates back to the 18th and 19th centuries. And the expression originated from archaic medical practices with soldiers in the field. And it was a way of distracting patients since anesthesia was not a thing yet. The doctors would have them bite down on a literal bullet.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, so
I
that's
like
where we
that one.
get bite the bullet from. Yeah. And the next one is Mad as a Hatter. And most people are familiar with Mad Hatter from Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. But that phrase did not originate with Carroll. The phrase Mad as a Hatter actually comes from Mad Hatter's disease, and it's better known as mercury poisoning. And the expression is linked to the hat making industry
Cool.
because back during through the 18th and 20th centuries, hat makers used a poisonous mercury-based solution that caused them to slowly lose their minds. And depending on the level of exposure, it could cause symptoms like tremors, overexcitability, and it could even make them go mad. And during this time period, Danbury, Connecticut was known as the hat making capital of the world. And there it was known as the Danbury Shakes.
Huh. Next time I
Yeah.
meet somebody from Connecticut, I'm gonna have to throw that at them. I'm sure they'll really appreciate it and know exactly what I'm talking about too.
Okay.
The Danbury Shakes, they will.
Okay, so I am so psyched for you to meet our guest today. But before I introduce her, I have a question for you. So when I was growing up, I had a very creative mindset. And I always dreamt I would have go around and have sort of these fantasies that I would reenact in my room, as we all do. And I always dreamt of having a creative career of some sort. Did you have that too, Jenny?
I did actually. I grew up in the film industry, so I always wanted to be a writer, except for in my youth, I wanted to write and direct films rather than being an author.
Okay, so let me just say I was a huge theater kid growing up, and my first role was in the second grade. I played the Wicked Witch in Snow White. I did a couple of plays in high school. I was in The Sound of Music in my junior year. And then, ironically, I had an opportunity to be in The Sound of Music my senior year. So I went from being the mistress of the choir in the first time to being Mother Superior in the second one. Not very long after that, I had another play that I auditioned for that I had to be a nun in. So I did 3 plays / musicals in a row where I played a nun. So the nun jokes just flowed like water. None for me.
I feel like I should have been warned about that in advance so I could have a nun joke on deck.
Oh, I know.
But unfortunately, I've got none.
You got nothing.
She's got none.
That's the kind of thing I dealt with. I got all the nun jokes, but it was the Sound of Music that got me the third play, because they needed somebody to bring some music into this non-musical musical. I mean, it wasn't really musical. It was a play called Little Moon of Alban, and it was set in Ireland, and they needed something in Latin. So I knew some of the songs from The Sound of the Music that the choir sang. So I went into the audition. They said, well, sing something for us. So I sang the opening piece from The Sound of Music in Latin. And it was a perfectly empty theater, and the acoustics were phenomenal. And I don't know that I've ever sang that well since or before that. So that was one of those huge moments. And of course, I got the role. And then I had to teach all the other actresses how to sing that song, because we actually used it in the play.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So I went through phases. Sometimes I wanted to be an actress. Sometimes I wanted to be a singer. A lot of times it was a singer. But by the time I was a teenager, I knew that novelist was a better fit for me, just because of who I was and that sort of thing. And also the fact that my singing is probably mediocre at best, but there's that. Our guest today, though, has lived all the dreams of my youth. She's been a lauded singer. She's an actress, often on London's West End, but also all the way to Hollywood. She's been in stage productions with household names like Wicked, School of Rock, Wizard of Oz, and also hit the silver screen and played Jenny Gucci in Ridley Scott's House of Gucci. So she's also a success coach and an all-around bundle of sunshine. So Florence, welcome.
Thank you so much. I am so thrilled to be here. So thanks for having me.
We are excited to have you here, Florence. Welcome.
And you know what's funny? Well, when you were saying that you always thought of being an actor and a singer, I've totally had dreams of being a writer as well. So there you go. We've swapped.
I think it's just like the perfect trifecta, right? I think
yeah.
We all sort of fit that creative mold in a certain kind of way, and writing and performing are so hand in hand. And
storytellers, right?
Yeah.
Which way are you going to do it?
Yeah. I've made it onto high school stages, but that's as far as I've gone. Now, granted, I was a teacher at the time. I didn't do it when I was in high school, but yeah, so that's cool. And it's so exciting to have you here, because I love the whole rhythm of the stage and all that sort of thing. So I'll geek out just a little bit, and I hope you can forgive me for that. So tell us a little bit about some of the productions you've been in. I kind of highlighted a couple. Are there any that really just kind of stuck out for you and created the best memories for you?
Oh gosh, there's just so many. It's funny. I look back on my career so far, and it's like I segment my past by what show I was in at what time. I was like, oh yeah, I was going out with that person when I was in that show, and that was happening in my family when I was in that show. you know, for me, I still feel like my very first professional job was super special because I was just so pinching myself the whole way through. Like, you never quite know if you're being delusional or if it will ever happen that you'll, I mean, my dreams for a long time were like, if I can just be like third tree from the right in a West End show, I'll be happy. You know, like it started there. Like, you know, it's
Third tree from the right.
Yeah, like, come on, we can do this.
You know, I actually was the third tree from the right in The Wizard of Oz on stage. I actually got to
God, you
throw
see?
apples.
So you've done it.
So you didn't know that, but
I'm jealous.
you tied me right in there. Go ahead.
There you go. I'm super jealous. Yeah, so that my first job was with Sir Trevor Nunn, and she wasn't as much of a household name. She was in musical theatre, but than she is now. But Hannah Waddingham and Jessie Buckley.
Wow.
And that was a Little Night Music, so a Stephen Sondheim production. And we did a run at a theatre called the Meunier Chocolate Factory, which is a little kind of fringe off West End theatre, before we transferred to the West End. And I just learned so much. It was a really gorgeous first job with some incredible people, and I just soaked up every second. So that would definitely be one. And then another show that I loved that a lot of people don't know about was called Once. That was on at the Phoenix Theatre in London, and Ronan Keating, I don't know if you know, was it Boyzone? It was like a 90s English band. Anyway, he was quite big in the 90s. He was in it. But I got to, I started as a muso. I'm a musician as well. So I got to play piano live in that. And I loved that. That was like a real mix of, actually, interestingly, Irish and Polish music because of the story. And the ensemble were on stage all the way throughout, like a bit like a kind of Brecht production. There's just so many. Shakespeare I loved doing as well. I was lucky to do that up in Yorkshire in Rep. So yeah, I mean, and then there's the kind of all the glossy, more high profile things I've done. You know, House of Gucci was, of course, next level, unexpected, incredible. That was during a pandemic. So the last thing I was expecting, I didn't think I was going to even be acting for a while. I was like, what's happening? What's happened to my career? And then I got that opportunity, and it was an interesting mix because I was off in Italy for 6 weeks away from my two little teeny kids. So I was like, one second I was like, oh my God, scrolling pictures of them, like feeling really emotional. And then I was spread eagling on a hotel bed, like whooping because it was awesome. So all the feels. So yeah, I mean, I feel super lucky. There's been some I mean, I feel every job I've done has, even, you know, at the time, sometimes if certain things are challenging, I look back on all of them with so much fondness and gratitude. Just the people I've met as well, and the backstage and the crew and just all the characters and the family of it all. Yeah, all of them special in their own ways, for sure.
Florence, I have to imagine there must be a big difference between working on stage and doing a production like Ridley Scott's House of Gucci.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's interesting actually, because when I did House of Gucci, I was kind of being thrown in the deep end. I'd done a little bit of TV, I'd done some ads, but my mainstay had been theatre, just show after show after show for years. And I'd wanted to get into, I always felt like I was an actor who could sing rather than a singer who could act. And you know, once you are put in a box of, especially if you I had lots of straight plays on my CV, but there was a lot of musical theatre on there. And it can be really easy to get stuck in that box, right? Of like, you know, it can be hard to transition over to screen. So I thought this was going to be a slow burn. And then again, House of Gucci happened. And I was very nervous because I didn't have much experience on set. And I had 2 weeks in quarantine when I got there in a hotel, just to panic about like my 3 scenes, basically. But the main thing that I was nervous about, I felt confident about the character. I knew I could, you know, I felt confident about my ability, you know, to show up and act. The thing, funnily enough, that I felt most nervous about was the etiquette on set and how that was different to being on stage. So things like continuity and, you know, like little things like that, and not wanting to get those pieces wrong. And I knew I didn't want to be on set worrying about that. I just wanted to be able to think about the character. But what I was really lucky with that experience was that it happened that the way Ridley Scott directs, he has all these different cameras like hidden away set up. He'll have like 8 cameras on you. and you just run it like it's a play, like in linear order. You just run the whole scene. You can't see where the cameras are. So for me, I was
Wow.
like, thank God. Like, it really helped me because it kind of felt, and that's quite rare, but it was a perfect transition for me because it almost felt like, you know, I was on stage, because we could just run it. I didn't need to think, oh, when am I picking up this cup? And I need to remember that I picked it up then. And I remember Ridley Scott saying, oh, it's, you know, that was great because every time the camera went to you, you were like in it, you were on. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know any other way. So that was awesome. But yeah, you know, I think in a way they're quite similar in that the thing I love about them both is that, like I mentioned it before, that family thing, that, you know, all this whole group of creatives, everyone's in their different zone of genius coming together to make something happen, to tell this story, to connect, to make this art. And I've always really enjoyed that. And I felt that on set, and you feel that in the theater as well. I think one of the big differences is that with theater, I'd say it's almost like the audience are an undeniable character in the show. And so it changes the color and the feel of the show every night. And it's weird how a whole group of individuals together can be a certain kind of audience, but they are. It just kind of seems to happen. So I do love that immediate feedback because there's this connection going on between you and the audience the whole way through. And I do love that. And it kind of, you know, it's good and bad in that as well, in that you can't stop, you can't retake, but the fact that you can't also almost forces you into that slight flow state, you know, like once you're on the wave, you got to ride it till curtain closes. So I think the adrenaline junkie in me, healthy or not, loves that. But you know, yeah, there's something special to both. So,
and at least, you know, stage actors are never going to be replaced by AI. So
that is true. Let's hope not. I mean, I don't know. Have you seen those hologram things? Jesus.
Only the ABBA one. I mean, I know Kiss is doing one now, but I don't know.
Yeah. Let's hope not.
Yeah, no. But have you ever done one of those stage performances? You talked about the audience as a character. Have you ever done one of those plays where there's a lot of interaction with the audience? You know, where either people are pulled in, or, you know, the actors go out into the audience, or any of those sorts of.
I haven't done not really in such a direct way. I mean, I probably Shakespeare was the most interactive in a way, because you had those kind of soliloquies where you'd break that fourth wall and you kind of you'd look into the eyes of people and you knew they were there. I'm trying to think if there was anything else. I've had some. Yeah, I mean, physically, I've had some shows where, for example, when I was in Once, my entrance onto the stage was down through the aisle of the audience. So actually, to get to that entrance, once the show had begun, I would like go around with one of the crew, like the front of the theater, onto the street, walk in. But yeah, probably Shakespeare. I do have, I mean, I do have a short story about a time when an audience member got a bit too involved in the show when they shouldn't have.
Oh no!
Which it's a little bit crude. I'm going to make it family friendly as possible.
It can be PG. PG is okay.
Yeah, PG. It was in A Little Night Music. It was before we'd transferred to the West End, and at the Menier, the way they had it set up, it was in the round, and the stage was on the same level as the front row, and then the audience was tiered upwards from there. And it got, I don't know if you know A Little Night Music, but near the end there's this very moving scene between the two leads, and they're kind of you know, professing their love for each other after all these decades. And this man, who clearly had a lot to drink, started stumbling onto the stage, walked past them while they were doing the scene, opened a door that led nowhere, which, thank God, there's a point in the play where a few of us had to just hide behind that door because of the way the scenery moved, and we were stuck there for a scene. So thank goodness we weren't there. He opened that door and he relieved himself. He obviously had too much to drink.
Oh gosh!
To him, and he just stood there during the scene. And so yeah, there have been interesting times when the audience got a bit too involved.
People got a
Yeah,
little extra show with their show with that
they
ticket.
did. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's over involved.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Um, so, I was looking through your website, and I was seeing sort of a lot of the different things that you've done, and I was excited about obviously a lot of the projects that you've been on, but I found it really interesting also that you've started a success coaching business, which is,
Hmm.
I didn't see that coming. And then when I went to your website, I was like, oh, I see. So,
Yeah.
So, Florence, tell us a little bit about your coaching business.
Yeah, it's funny actually because I'm really bad at being an entrepreneur when it comes to my acting business. So when you go look me up, I'm like, here's my coaching. Essentially, that came about because there's kind of two parts to this story. One was that first lockdown. So when COVID happened and theaters closed overnight, I just kind of come out of a year off having my second child, and funds were running low as a self-employed actor, and I was like, right, it's time to get back to work. I was 3 days into a new show, rehearsing for a new show, and then they were like, guys, I'm really sorry, you're not coming in tomorrow. Hopefully this thing will blow over in a couple of weeks. Haha.
a year
And
later.
yeah, a year later. And so overnight I kind of went from the main breadwinner to working in the West End, providing for my family, to just everything gone. And I was already kind of like, the cushion was low because I just come off maternity leave, right? So that was quite terrifying. And I kind of had to make a decision quite quickly and go to that answer of, when people ask you, well, if you weren't a writer, what would you do? If you weren't an actor, what would you do? And my answer for quite a while was, I think I'd love to coach. And the reason for that, the seed for that really was planted probably about 10 or so years earlier, where I really suffered a lot from stage fright. I went through a phase of just absolutely crumbling. Like, I'd have maybe a week of stage fright and then it would kind of disappear and I'd get over it. But it would be so bad. Like, at its worst, I had a panic attack through a 3-minute solo on stage. It was horrific. And I remember thinking, like, if this carries on, like, I don't know how to do this anymore. And so it was actually that kind of moment, that catalyst, that panic attack was a catalyst for me going, okay, like, how much do I want to do this? And I've got to accept that something's going on in my head that I need to sort out. And so I went and did a lot of work on myself, looked into mindset. I trained actually with a performance psychologist, someone who used to be an athlete and work with, she was an Olympian athlete, and she worked with athletes on their kind of sports psychology, and then went into singing, work with singers and actors, and just learned how to deal with performing under pressure. And it really, really turned my career around. Before that, I was in the ensemble of things. I was kind of the first cover for the female lead, and I was grateful and I loved it. But I also was feeling like frustrated. I knew I could do more. And doing that work, I think it was about 3 or 4 months later, I got my first leading lady role. And I really don't see it as a coincidence. Like, it just helped me to, just take up that space. And yeah, so it was that really, that when everything happened in lockdown, I kind of was looking around. I was kind of geeky into the entrepreneurial world and kind of personal development and all of that. And I could really see, exploring that world, how, and thinking, what could my business be? What could I help people with? How people were really struggling with showing up as the face of their brand. Getting on camera, getting on video, maybe even getting on stage and talking about their business, that visibility side. And so that's what I've specialized in. I was like, I'm going to bring what I learned and help people in the entrepreneurial space, or in any kind of space where they want to have their version of success, to show up without shame, essentially,
Oh, that's fascinating.
And so that's what started that. And then it just kind of carried on and built up. And I've actually loved having a second string to my bow. It's kind of given me a bit of creative freedom of saying yes and no to different parts more, and going, I'm not financially dependent on being in a show. It's felt quite empowering in that way as an actor, because I think acting is one of those, it's one of those arts where you can only do it if someone hires you, which
Right.
can feel quite passive, and tricky. And so it's felt quite empowering for me to grow my own business alongside my creative career as well. Yeah.
And during all this, when COVID was going on, you had mentioned you were quarantined for 2 weeks
Mhm.
in Italy for the House of Gucci. How did that come about during COVID?
Do you know what? I don't know. I was so surprised by it. So this was, I think this was in the second UK lockdown, and I wasn't expecting anything. I mean, I everything was down. And my agent, it happened very quickly. My agent called me and said, "Hey, you've got a self-tape for Ridley Scott." And I was like, "I'm sorry, what?" So that was, um, yeah, a real surprise. And all I did was I did one self-tape, and then I got a call saying, "Hey, Ridley Scott has emailed saying he loved your tape, and it looks like I don't want to get your hopes up, but he's got to check it with, I don't know, some producers or something, and like it looks like you're going to have an offer on Monday." So then I had a weekend of going, can I get excited or can't I? Which was
I was gonna say,
crazy.
I'd be freaking out to
I
receive an email knowing Ridley Scott loved your
Yeah, it
tape,
was
you
it was
know?
insane. And then Monday I had it, and I think literally Ridley Scott works so fast. I think I had like a month or maybe 1 to 2 months before I was flying to Italy. I didn't know what song I was also singing in the film. I didn't know what song I was going to sing until about a week before we filmed that bit. So I was like, oh my God. And yeah, it was insane. Like I said, I was 6 weeks away on my own, which was amazing and challenging all at the same time. And the whole thing was just incredibly surreal. I mean, I remember that first scene that we filmed, and I was sitting there on this sofa, and like to my right was Jared Leto, and then to my left was Adam Driver and Lady Gaga, and then in front of us was Al Pacino, and I was like, have I been put in the wrong room? Like, have they made a mistake? What's going on? This can't be, So I had to really shush that part of my brain that kept going, what? And yeah, but it was amazing.
So I'm sure that you have with all the crazy stuff that you've been through, I'm sure you have a terrific, unfreaking believable story for us.
But Florence, how would you classify your unfrickin' believable story? Because we have a lot of categories that we do on the
Mm.
show, whether it's a miracle, supernatural, dumb luck,
Mm-hmm.
or a moment of courage, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe none of the above.
Oh man, I mean, so I think I was saying to you guys before, I'm like, I don't know, I've got so many random, unfreaking believable stories that it's really hard to choose. I honestly think that what happened in House of Gucci, and there's like a moment I'll take you to that was especially pinched me, was, to me, it's one of those moments where it's unfreaking believable in the moment. Right. So often you look back in hindsight and you're like, whoa, that was unbelievable. But it was one of those times where this is unbelievable and I don't know how to deal with how unbelievable it is. So for sure, I mean, one of those, I would say it was filming in Lake Como at this incredible like mansion. And I would say there's probably a couple of parts to this story. My first part was the first time I walked on set, and just such an array of cast members there. Like, just there were so many massive names in that, and it was just that moment of, I have hoped and dreamt that something like I would be in this kind of environment with these kind of creatives that I respect so much for so long, and it all happened so fast. And it was just the expanse of the mountains of Lake Como, a mansion, saying hi to Lady Gaga, Ridley Scott introduced, like all in one, like I would say in about a 15-minute period, everything happened. I remember that morning being in the trailer at Lake Como and being there at like 5 a.m. and it was all dark, and there's people like getting their, cappuccinos and espressos from the coffee cart. And even that, which sounds like, to me, it felt like Glastonbury Festival. Like, it felt like this amazing, I just can't explain it. So, and I think that a real pinnacle of that filming was probably when we were filming the scene with Jared Leto's character has his fashion show. And that I was playing his wife, Jenny Gucci, who was a kind of amateur opera singer. And so I had to sing arguably like one of the hardest arias there is to sing from the Magic Flute. And Ridley Scott, we'd had actually recorded it previously. It was all recorded. We had the audio. And then he's like, I think we're going to do it live. Are you okay with that, Flo?
No.
And just suddenly kind of threw me into the spotlight, and added in like that we're going to do this shot as well as soon as you finish singing, where Jared Leto is going to do this, and then we're going to close up on your face, and if you can bring some tears out. And I was like, okay, there's no moment for rehearsal. I was like, hadn't properly warmed up my voice because I thought it was going to be miming to my own recording. And I think it's one of those moments where it's like kind of a bit of a do or die. It's like, okay, Flo, like, are you gonna all that stuff I went through with the stage fright, it was really it was funny. It kind of came to a point then of like, are you going to let yourself show off?
Exactly.
Essentially, that's how I describe it, because I think a big thing for me in the past was this tug of war internally between knowing what I was capable of, wanting to step into it and own it, but also this other part of me going, yeah, but who are you to do that? And what if you fail? And what if you make yourself look like an idiot in front of everyone? And what if you're not even as good as you think you might be? And all of that. And so in a moment like that, it's like, are you going to jump off the cliff or not? Like, because you can't, I'd been in enough situations where you go for it, but you like belly flop. You kind of back out as well at the same time. You try and play safe. And so I remember saying to myself in that moment, probably some sound guy could hear me through my mic, but I remember being like, just show off, Flo, just show off, just show off, just show off. Because that's kind of what you got to do, is let yourself go big, and like, maybe I'd fall on my face. And so it was an unfreaking believable moment. And what was pretty awesome is that after I finished that take and they did that close up, one of the crew, because I was a lesser known actor, I was staying in a hotel with a crew people, not like in some la-di-da apartment. And so I got to know them all quite well. So one of the crew members who I knew quite well, he came up afterwards and he said, after they said cut on that scene, Ridley Scott just said, wow. And I was like, okay, I'm happy now. If I never work again, I'm sorted. So for me, that's probably an unfreaking believable story, because it's I've still got my ambitions. There's still so much I want to do, but yeah, that felt creatively very. I was proud of myself, and it felt very surreal and
well,
awesome.
It sounds like it was also, in a way, kind of like a testing ground for all of that interior work that you had done prior to that. It's like,
yeah,
the universe gives you this opportunity to test, have you learned what you were supposed to learn? And it sounds like you were able to apply it at that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's so interesting is I feel like when you're on set and someone shouts action and the camera's on you, or when you're in the wings and you're about to step forwards and that fear is there, like, it's not like the fear ever goes. But it's so tangible because it's such a clear thing. Like, you can hear the voice in your head saying, really trying to justify, like, just run away, like, leave. You just get out of this situation, but you have to step forwards anyway. And so it's such a tangible thing, and so there really are like those opportunities where you get to, like you say, really test out the work you've been doing on yourself and make decisions. Like, in those moments, it's like an opportunity to decide, what are you going to do, how are you going to respond to it, and just have to be courageous. So yeah, for me, I'd say that's probably up there with those unbelievable stories, for sure.
It really is. You're sitting in a room with Jared Leto, Lady Gaga, Ridley Scott, and all of a sudden it's like, perform. And you did. I can't wait to watch the scene again, knowing your backstory to this.
Yes. Yes. Go watch.
Yes.
Yeah. It was crazy. Yeah. What was really great as well is that, you kind of, it's interesting when I think, and I guess you guys will relate to this in a different way, but, when you're a creative, it's easy to put certain people on pedestals. They've got these famous names, they're well known, maybe you've really loved their work, and you kind of put them on this pedestal, understandably. And I had that, but there was this moment where, for various reasons, we had to change where the scene was, and therefore everyone had to break for half an hour while cameras moved around. And Al Pacino was like, should we all line run? And we all like went over to this corner, and it was like me and Al Pacino and Lady Gaga and Adam Driver and all these amazing people, and we were line running. And I remember thinking, I'm so glad this moment happened, because I've just realized we're all like, I know this, standing in a circle of actors, line running. I'm like, they are just normal people.
Yeah.
And I was lucky in that Ridley Scott had this thing, and he had it for everyone, no matter what department they were in the film, where everyone was equally respected. Everyone was treated the same. There was no room for like egos or hierarchy.
Right
and
on.
again, like, I think that really brings out the best in people, because we are all there because we're bringing what's needed to the film. And so yeah, that was great to kind of just realize that as well. It's obvious, you know, but just to be like, yeah, I belong here. It's okay. I'm allowed.
Right.
Yeah.
That's actually, I'm so glad to hear you say that, because you always hear about in film the sets being these toxic environments for particularly the people who aren't the primary leads. And so it's wonderful to hear that the director made it sort of almost like a personal mission to make sure that that was not the case, and that it was a welcoming environment for everyone.
Oh,
So that's pretty cool.
absolutely. Yeah, and I can see how that could be the case. And I've been in that situation, you know, in shows like in London, if they bring a big celebrity name in to put bums on seats. And, you know, I've seen that happen, and it only brings down the performance of everyone. You know, it brings in a kind of toxicity or a jadedness or resentment, and kind of it separates people. And the more you can build a team that are all together and working together, the better. And I've got to say, like, Ridley Scott was very, very cool. I hear he used to, like, you know, have quite the fire in him, you know, like, and kind of, he wouldn't want to get on the wrong side. But I never saw that. I saw someone who was like, you know, I think he's a Geordie, you know, he's like a northerner, and he's like super down to earth, super salt of the earth, and clearly just had no time for any of that. And had, you know, a lot of the people in, say, the wardrobe department, in you know, the cameramen, like cinematography, like the sound, they worked on a lot of his films. So clearly he found the people that he really respected and trusted, and who were in their zone of genius. And then he just puts everyone together and does a couple of takes, and then we move on. It's like he just trusts that if he brings the right people together, then it's going to happen. And so it felt, yeah, that it didn't feel very Hollywood. I remember, I mean, it did at times. I remember,
except for Lake Como.
Yeah, except for Lake Como. I was going to say, then I was like, okay, I'm in Hollywood. I remember though, on that sofa, it was so funny because I was so in like acting mode. I was so in like being my character and kind of do the things I needed to do to kind of perform and be in the right state of mind. And it's almost like 3% of my brain every now and then couldn't help but like come out being like, oh my God, Flo, like, where are you? What's going on? So it was an interesting experience of, yeah, my brain hopping all over the place.
That's amazing. And it just, I don't know. I often have had the conversation with Betsy and Jenny about how the more I get into the author community, it sounds like the acting community is very much the same. A lot of us are just working writers, like you guys are working actors. It's not like, you know, we don't have our, you know, $5 million mansions that we drive up in our Lamborghinis and all that kind of stuff. So the idea that these people who are household names, you know, that anyone would know, when you actually talk to them and you're in sort of an organic setting, I'm not talking about sort of in a meet and greet fan setting, but just in an organic setting, they're just absolutely normal people. And in fact, that a lot of people who you would think of that you think might be that $5 million house Lamborghini people are actually just probably just ordinary Joes and Janes going to work every day. And it just so happens they have a really visible job.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd almost say, like, in my experience, that sometimes it's that the people who are super uber successful are the most kind of introverted and just want to lead a quiet life and kind of aren't like splashy with it all. Not that there's anything wrong. Like, of course, if you've got the money, spend it on what you want to spend it on, like live where you want to live, right? But that seems to have been my experience. There's been so many big names, kind of even just like in theatre, kind of, that have come in that I knew before, you know, that I knew of, and that I had a bit of like, I might have been a bit starstruck when I met them. And yeah, and sometimes it's the people who maybe aren't quite doing as well as you think they might be, that almost feel they need to kind of show how well they're doing. So it's interesting. It's a bit smoke and mirrors, I think. You know, you never quite
Yeah.
know. But what's interesting is I do find that a lot of those really, really kind of famous people just want a lot of privacy, are quite quiet, are quite unassuming. And Adam Driver was very, very sweet and quiet and unassuming, just kind of went back to his trailer, you know, and yeah, we forget that, don't we? Because we see the stories from the press and we kind of think that's the person, and it's just a story that sells, really. It's not real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, and who knows, maybe I'll even have to cut this later, but it just occurred to me, I hear all kinds of stories about Jared Leto on set.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that, I mean, but I don't know if that's because he's a character actor and he gets into his character and then becomes that person, and then everybody else is like, what?
Yeah.
So did you see any of that kind of stuff? And this is not really me geeking out over Jared Leto. It's just that I've heard this in his reputation. I'm
I have
curious from someone who was working with him if is that a real thing?
Yeah.
You don't
moving on. No, I'm joking. No, I mean, I never met the real Jared Leto. I only met Paolo Gucci, who he played.
Right.
So that was quite that had the
potential. Well, I've heard he is a character actor. Like he literally just becomes that person for the duration of the film.
Yep, he's definitely method, all in method. And so when I was introduced to him, I was introduced to him as his wife, and I met my husband, and he was like this, you know, he was wearing this fat suit and like had his prosthetics on. So he was like this big Italian, and I was like, holy, you know? Like, okay, and I got like a big bunch of flowers, and I got a love letter in Italian from him near the end. But he was also lovely. Like I personally, I really felt like he, you know, safe, and he was lovely. And he was very much like, and you know what? It's funny because it's unfortunately this was cut out of the scene where we're all inside on the sofa, but that scene when we were filming it, Jared Leto was like improvising all over the place, and it kind of pushed me out of, this is how I've decided I'm going to do it, which I know was a good thing, because really it's like you need to prep and then kind of throw it away when the cameras are on, and just like be open. And so he was so out there, like his character was so out there that it made my character go more out there. It's like, there's some crazy stuff we filmed that I'm such a shame it's not in. But that kind of loosened me up a bit, actually. So it was, I don't know, other people might have like not liked that so much, but he was he was absolutely.
Did you get to kiss him?
I didn't kiss him. And you know what? I'm kind of like, as much as, you know, my so-called life years self would have loved that, as Paolo Gucci, I don't know, like I feel it might have been a bit.
I've seen the picture. Yeah. It's not the Jared Leto that we remember.
Not at all.
You know.
But it's still Jared Leto.
30 Seconds to Mars. So.
It's still Jared Leto, but you know that if he was going to kiss you as Paolo Gucci, he'd really go for it. So I don't know, I might have
it would have made another unfreaking believable story, though, I'll tell you.
I lived to tell the tale,
Yeah, exactly. All of these experiences that you've had, and it's led up to you doing the life coaching, the success coaching, and then obviously it's just been a roller coaster of a ride for you. What kind of projects are you working on now? What's on deck for Florence Andrews right now?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm just starting to get back to self-taping and auditioning again. I obviously, like, the writer's strike and everything going on, and everything's been pretty quiet in terms of screen work. So it's exciting. I can see that things are starting to open back up again. So I am just auditioning at the moment. And in fact, I've started auditioning again for the first time in years for West End stuff, because for a long time I didn't want to, because even though I so missed it, because I wanted to see my kids, and it is a very family friendly job, right? It's 8 shows a week, 6 days a week. But you know, me and my partner talked about it recently, and I was like, I really miss it, and we'll make it work. And we kind of, so it's all really for me starting to ramp up again, and also wanting to be writing my own stuff. So actually, I'm stepping into my childhood dream a little bit and trying to be. I was never quite brave enough to really put my own stuff out there, and I think. Yeah, you know, I love comedy. I love silliness and stupidness and making fun of the world we live in. And so that I'm also starting to work on some of my own projects as well. So yeah, just watch this space. I don't know which way it will go, but I'm open to it all. So we shall see.
Well, and I hope that the flood of exciting opportunities just crashes right over you, and you're able to ride it wherever you would like to go. And I cannot thank you enough for being with us today. We have just this has just been a lovely conversation. I have a feeling that I could just talk to you for hours. But again, thank you so much. Is there anything that you would like to have our listeners, you know, think about, or would you like to direct them to your website, do a little pitch for your business?
Sure. Yeah, so I mean, in terms of a message, the first thing that comes up to me to say and leave people with is, you know, in terms of my story, like, lean into fear, not away from it. Like, stop waiting to feel like you're ready to do the thing you want to do. Stop waiting until you feel calm and chill about it, because I still get terrified before I do anything, like everything. And if you wait until you're calm, it's not going to happen. So that, it's super cliche, the whole feel the fear and do it anyway. I feel like that's kind of the motto of my life so far. So if I could pass on one thing, it would be
Right
that.
on.
In terms of like following me online, I've got to say, like I said, I am so bad at being an entrepreneur for my acting business. Having said that, I used to have an acting Instagram. It got hacked. It's gone. I'm going to start one again. So the best place to find me is where my coaching business is. And once I start rocking up as an actor online again, I'll put it on there, so you'll find me. And that is Florence_Andrews_coaching on Instagram. And yeah, like I said, as soon as I've got my acting Instagram back up and running, I'll put it on there, and you'll see.
Awesome. And we will share that out on our Facebook group and our Instagram as well. Again, thank you so much.
If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review it on whatever platform you listen on, and join our Unfreaking Believable Facebook group and follow us on TikTok and Instagram.
Visit our website at www.ufbpodcast.com. And if you have an unfreaking believable story, reach out to us at ufbpodcast@gmail.com. We'd like to hear your story too.
In fact, go ahead and subscribe so you never miss a single Unfreaking Believable episode.
All right, Betsy, how about you take us out with a quote of the day?
All right, my quote of the day comes from Terrence Mann. Movies will make you famous, television will make you rich, but theater will make you good.
Love it.
Absolutely.
Be sure to join us next time for yet another Unfreaking Believable guest with an Unfreaking Believable story.
And as always, thank you for listening. And as you go out into the world this week, don't just be amazing.
Be unfreaking believable.
See you all next time.